Hey, okay, I've prepared a response for Freddie Lee's video entitled BJJ. Low Job-Jiujitsu is ineffective for street combat. Now, I'd encourage you to watch that video first before listening to this one. And also, if you have any input on this end, I highly encourage you to leave it in the comment section. And if you have any questions for the man, the myth, the legend himself, please I also encourage you to ask those directly to him as well, and just really get this conversation jump started on all fronts. So if it interests you, uh, highly encouraged to participate. Now I've already written down this response, so I'm just going to read it off verbatim. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, laying on your back with your legs up facing a standing opponent is not ideal. Something happened prior to this position taking place that was omitted from the story. Not to mention, in boxing or in any form of training, the effectiveness of the technique is based on the skill of the user. Exactly what was the person's background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Did this person attend class? Did he attend class regularly? Did he only read BJJ books, or perhaps casually watch videos online from time to time? Seeing as how technically I have a background in long fist kung fu, seeing as how I took classes for 3 weeks 10 years ago. That's the term background. It's very open-ended. The second scenario, of course, if you really pay attention to what is said, is simply a story about the extreme dangers of two-on-one combat. The blow from behind the head uh, delivered by the second person could have been just as easily dealt while everyone was standing. This second story could not readily be used to discredit any form of training. In fact, it simply promotes the notion of situational awareness. So that, listen to it, and I think you'll find that description to be pretty much true. Also, in your reference to the choke being deadly, not necessarily violent and lethal, a choke will lead to the loss of consciousness. However, the person being choked is released upon the loss of consciousness, as BJJ clearly advocates. You can check with any school that teaches it. If the defeated person loses consciousness, it's very much the practice to immediately let go. And if you're in a self-defense situation, you then leave. If you're in a training situation, raise the legs up, shake them, get the blood going, and they're fine. After like a few moments, as they typically are when this happens in training, every single day in America, in BJJ schools, judo schools, all over, when somebody gets caught, and they make that decision not to tap out. Sometimes they want to test the choke, and more likely than not, the choke is going to win. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die. You have to consciously turn it into a lethal move by over-applying the choke once the consciousness has already been lost, or doing some unnecessarily complicated bone manipulation of the neck and the head in order to purposely make it a breaking technique. That is not going to happen accidentally. It is a very conscious set of movements that will lead to that outcome. There is nowhere near enough detail in this situation about the user in the first story to discredit the effectiveness of BJJ in self-defense. As far as the second story, 2-on-1 creates a variable that most people find it difficult to overcome, especially in the scenario they've written about where the second attacker comes moments after the conflict starts and from behind. There are vast video logs of footage in where the smaller opponent uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling techniques to defeat a much larger opponent in a really non-violent fashion, the damage dealt to the loser being extremely minimal. And those opponents, not only are they larger, and most of these instances they are trained martial artists as well, so they're not just giant brawlers. They have been trained, and essentially, as far as punching and kicking and being effective in violence, knew what they were doing, and still managed to lose. And what I mean, they win in these non-violent fashions, is that when the hold is released, the pain at that point simply stops. Or they will regain consciousness if they do not tap out from the choke, or the choke is released while they're still conscious and they get their breath back, and then they're fine. Like, it'll be the equivalent of the aftermath of the loser's part, probably the first 1 to 3 smiley faces on the pain chart that you'll often see when you go into the doctor's office. I would readily equate it to that. Even military and law enforcement utilized this type of training for some time now. I should say they have utilized it for some time now, especially the military. And actually, there's a lot of police departments that use it too, especially the Gracie combative system. And these are all things that I encourage you to look up yourself, read the reviews on, read the discussions about, and see how and why that the military and the police have both welcomed and readily adopted the philosophies and the techniques of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu into their training. They sought them out. And, you know, they seem to be very happy with it. I just beat about it. Look this up for yourself. Do not take my word for it. I encourage everyone to do their own research, so that way you will have things that maybe I didn't think about, or someone else didn't think about, that you came up with yourself that's valuable and will could dramatically change the outcome, I should say, of the entire discussion. So please, yes, do that. You seemed all too ready to utilize the story with more holes than a piece of Swiss cheese as evidence against BJJ, while still perpetuating your homophobia to the maximum effect. If this is the type of story, or the type of stories, that can discredit the effectiveness of a martial art, then simply by using this logic you have presented to us, not only is Kung Fu in the same boat as BJJ, it has been stranded to the point of being driven to drink seawater. And please look that up for yourselves as well. Do not take my word for anything. Don't take anybody's word for anything. Come back in either his comment section or mine with your own opinions, your own research, your own views, and really analyze the situation from both sides before taking a side. I understand some of you might not like Freddie Lee, may be more inclined to jump on this side over here, but and I think it's my belief that if you do your research and you're a reasonable person and you're not latching on to any specific loyalties above the value of facts and information presented, you'll ultimately come over here. But if you are a Freddie loyalist or a fan, or maybe even a personal friend of his, take both faces out of the picture, and I encourage you to look at strictly the information being presented. And I would like you to do all the research for yourself after seeing what both sides have to say, and that way you can come to your own conclusion. And I am willing to bet that you may surprise yourself that after doing so, your beliefs may not lie where you thought they would. And lastly, a personal message to Freddie Lee: the perpetuation of homophobia to the degree you so demonstrate negates any notion that you are actually interested in harmony and Zen. The intolerance and disgust that you perpetuate towards that entire group of people who've done nothing to you. It's very angry, it's very ignorant, and is very damaging to the community. And I would highly suggest you check yourself before you ultimately wreck yourself. Thank you for watching, and please take your time and do join the discussion.